Did you just?
I got the standing desk now, guys. I can back up.
Perfect.
Come back in. I did my effect yell for you on ATP. Ramsey's in my closing statement.
Perfect. Awesome.
Effect.
And with that being said, guys, we are live on Twitch. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to OWL by the Numbers, your one-stop spot for all things fantasy Overwatch League. I am your host, Emily Drunk, and tonight on episode 10, we're back to discuss a day full of roster movement, coaching changes. The hosts vote for their Overwatch League Fantasy All-Stars, take a look at the changes that are coming with Stage 2 that starts this week, and so much more. But before we can do that, introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and thank all of our repeat listeners out there. As you can tell, we do have a full house tonight with all hosts on hand. So let me welcome back Blazing Bob, Editor and Ramses to the show. Gents, it's felt like really an eternity at this point since we've either, sat down together to talk Fantasy Overwatch League or just, had Overwatch League to watch, as last week was the dark period without anything going on. But I just want to quickly go around and see how everyone's past week had been without Overwatch League. Bob, let's go ahead and start with you.
I mean, I cried a little bit. It's been a little rough. I did get to play a little bit more Overwatch. I did get to go to the entirety of the Omnic Lab game night, which was really good because the last two of them, I have basically been able to come in like during one match that didn't matter as much and kind of half watched that match and then had to leave and, come back afterwards when most people are gone. So it was really cool to be able to play that the entire time. But I'm jonesing, especially with the big PTR patch change. I'm jonesing to see what the pros do. And I'm hoping that they're not cowards and they try some different stuff.
Absolutely. There's a ton of great stuff coming with Stage 2 with that patch 1.34, which is the live patch. So definitely something to keep an eye on as we go into the new games this week. And we are also joined by Julian Gouldian, a.k.a. Ramses. And Ramses, I know you've had a lot going on. You've had a lot going on. Let me pull that. Oh, it's too late. I missed it. You've had a lot going on this past week. So why don't you tell everyone what you've been up to?
It's been, well, first of all, hi, everybody. Ramses here. It's been a very busy week/weekend. With the lack of fantasy Overwatch to actually be doing, it's given me a lot of time to really develop and push this project that a buddy and I have been working on, which we are talking about now, correct? Or are we waiting until the end of the show?
Both. I don't care. Like, whatever.
So, over the past weekend, we finally started recording a couple episodes of a new podcast that I'm putting together with Labasco, who's an open division caster for Contenders, if you might know him. So just our own little corner of the Overwatch League podcasting sphere, which it's fine for me to record at like 11 o'clock, sometimes even 1 in the morning, but when Labasco is fine to record at 3 a.m. Chicago time, which even for me sounds crazy.
It's 3 a.m. and Labasco's lonely, yeah. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Wait, wasn't Bob supposed to open up the show singing a song? He was, and I forgot what song he was supposed to sing.
Well, I mean, since I just won around the payload, it'll be We Are the
It was
Champions.
Blame Canada.
Blame Canada, yes. But here, go back to Ramses. Ramses' news is more important. He just said 3 a.m. in Labasco, and I just couldn't help myself.
Well, so we've been recording at 3 a.m. It's been a great time. It's been an interesting transition to try and host something when you don't have the experience and the mechanical just precision that a lot of the other hosts that I work with, specifically Totem, have. So
you did a really good job on episode 0. I listened to most of it today, and I mean, hosting is hard. I've taken a lot of definitely reach out to hosts like Totem, Rob May, like lots of hosts will be willing to help you.
Mm-hmm. Dude, if you've it's nice being on this show because I can just pop in, argue with Ed for like a minute and then back out.
A minute.
I mean, 45 seconds of it is Ed, but
But deciding when to push to the next topic, deciding when people are done talking, not letting too much airtime go, it is hard hosting.
It's rough, guys. Not rough like that is bad, but it's just such a difference.
Mhm.
But it's been pretty good. I've been enjoying it a lot. We have a couple episodes dropping this week to catch up in time for stage 2, and we'll talk about them more a little bit later.
All right. Well, joining us tonight again is my co-host.
Wait, hold on.
Oh.
He didn't say the name of the podcast.
Oh, thanks, Bob.
No problem.
Marketing 101. Here you go. Say the name of it.
Make sure and mention the Twitter too.
Oh, I was gonna cover that if need be.
This is my 5th year of college. I should know by now. But yeah, the show is called Push the Point. It's with Mash Those Buttons, another podcast network. And if you would do me the favor, the personal favor, follow the Twitter at pushpointpod. Like the band POD.
I would not correlate it to the band POD.
Oh,
It's like, hey, follow our show around the Nickelback. Oh, like the band Nickelback. No. Nickelback sucks. POD sucks.
I kind of like Nickelback.
What is wrong with you?
Have this whole conversation about like being careful what you say online because someone will throw it back at you, and you're lit, Bobby.
Yeah,
I
I'm sorry, dude. They're just like Smash Mouth. I like them for their movie songs. I like the movies their songs were in. I'm sorry.
At least had a good ska album at the beginning of the career. Which good ska album? I know oxymoron, but still, Smash Mouth have a couple hits.
You know, I thought I've heard some blasphemous things in my lifetime after hearing you guys talk about mac and cheese for 20 minutes on our podcasters roundtable the other night. But I've learned new things about people that I surround myself with every day this past week. But joining us again is my co-host from Heroes Never Die, that being none other than Ed and R. Ed. How's this past week been treating you?
It's been pretty good. It's been boring without Overwatch League, but kind of like Bob, I've played more Overwatch because I'm not sitting around watching it. You know, I've been actually watching a lot of Apex, which is actually super fun to watch. And then just catching up on movies, like watching a lot of movies, finishing up. Like this is, obviously crazy month for movies and television shows, so I'm catching up on all the I'm rewatching all the Marvel movies. I just finished my full rewatch of all of the Game of Thrones series.
I just rewatched the last season in preparation, and Friday night after game night ended, I watched Avengers.
Yeah, like it's just that time when you need to start doing that. Yes, Ramses.
Bob. So I was at the same game night. Bob got off at like 2 a.m. his time. So you watched another 2.5 hours of Avengers after that?
Dude, I meant to watch 20 minutes. I was hammered. I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn at game night. I was a hindrance to everybody that was there. And I was like, I'll watch 20 minutes of this and go to bed. Then I was like, I haven't went to bed yet. I looked at the thing. I was like, I only have 15 minutes left of the movie.
So basically what Bob is saying is that's why he plays Reinhardt.
I even switched to ride. Like I was like, I can't think about anything new. I'll just go with muscle memory, and it still wasn't working.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the agenda for tonight. So we did have some pretty big news out of the Atlanta Reign, both with a departure and a new signing that happened earlier today, on top of a slew of other changes, which we'll dive into later on tonight. But Bob, this is a pretty significant story that broke this season, arguably the biggest storyline of the year, you could definitely say. So what's going on with the Atlanta Reign this past week?
So a moment of silence for my boy who not along with every other analyst and podcaster in the space, I loved DeFran before everyone else did, and I had faith in him, and I'm sad to see him go. A little moment of silence. And we're back.
It's a quick moment.
But He did. Yeah, well, I didn't want to leave it too long. It's
Oh, it was
audio,
only
you know what I
one
mean?
stage, so it couldn't be the entirety. So you know,
There he is.
Like, I mean, it would have been amazing to be able to see him play some DPS, but what he did do is he did clear the stain upon his name, the throw forward Dufran memes. Those are gone. Like, the guy left with class. I'm pretty sure the guy wanted to leave after week 1 because when you're at the Blizzard Arena, we have, Brick McVictory who does interviews, and we can request anyone we want, win or lose, and they basically have to do it. But DeFran somehow had like a I don't have to interview thing, and we were really worried because we requested him literally every chance we could get and always were denied, saying that he has some sort of interview immunity. And I believe that's because they were just trying to keep the pressure off him so he could finish stage 1. And he did it well. He did it with class. I mean, I've got nothing but respect for him because XQC did it the opposite way. And I also was a fan of XQC and wanted to see him do well. But the DeFran redemption story is real, and it is in the books now, and good for him. I'm excited to see where he goes forward. He's also still working with the Atlanta Reign as one of their official streamers. So, yay. I mean, it's a bummer. It's a loss for the Overwatch League overall. That's the biggest loss. I mean, he was the biggest jersey seller in stage 1. It is definitely a loss for the Overwatch League, but it's best for him, and fans of him can still check out that stream and watch DeFran pop off with those Twitch Prime subs.
He had to get out before he got suspended. He's like, it's gonna happen. I made a full stage without getting suspended. I'm out.
I've never seen the Overwatch League put an interview on where they bleeped out the F word, but they did it with DeFran because he was that big.
Honestly, that's why you probably had he couldn't do interviews, is because they're like, nope, we can't trust this guy.
He's too much of a liability.
I mean, it could have been the league stipulation on it, but yeah, I mean, what does everybody else think? Like, I don't think you were a fan of DeFran, Ed. How do you feel now?
All right, so I was never a huge fan of DeFran the person. I was a huge fan of DeFran the player, and he proved the player-wise that he was there. He was legit. But it also kind of goes to one of the big knocks on DeFran going into this was he would throw, like before Overwatch, like he would throw, he would, get tilted, toss games, do stuff like that, quit on the game. He quit Overwatch how many times? This is just another progression in him quitting. Like, he quit on the Overwatch League. Now, not saying that,
but quitting the right way.
He quit the right way.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to stay in something. Like, he quit the right way.
Yes, but he's basically everything he's kind of done along the way has ended up with him just abruptly quitting. Like, I wish he would still stay in the league because he was good. He was fun to watch. He was very skilled. But from a personality standpoint, he's just not meant for it. And he just doesn't have the mentality, I think, for it. I wish it was different because Atlanta is 10 times more interesting with DeFran than without. I definitely am not going to be like...
Dogman's still fun, though, right?
He is, but he was half of... like the majority of why Dogman was fun is because he had DeFran as his sidekick. They were like the Bash Brothers.
Go Torb.
Up.
Yeah,
go Torb. All right, dude.
They were the Bash Brothers. Now you lose one of the Bash Brothers. What was that in Mighty Ducks 2 or 3?
Yeah,
when
number 2.
It was number 2 when they
Number
got
2.
separated, and they just didn't know what to do with themselves.
Well, but now you have Baby Bay.
The king.
You have Baby Bay, who may or may not start.
Who hasn't played?
Hasn't played
who
in
is
like a year.
proven in the Overwatch League. A
He played
great
stage
pickup.
4.
Well,
All right, did he play or
What
did he
season?
come in for a pity map?
And he wrecked the pity map he was on.
Dude, and he's one of the most amazing Pharahs that I saw in stage 1 of the
he was amazing
Overwatch
on
League
Pharah.
season 1. And Pharah might be coming back in. Like
Mhm.
Jinmu has, gotten all this fame, but I think Baby Bay and Jinmu meet in the air. Baby Bay comes out on top.
Now, like, all right, from a fantasy perspective, are you starting week 1? Are you starting Enlair or Baby Bay?
I
'Cause
already
Erster's-
picked up Baby Bay.
You already picked up
I
Baby Bay.
I had to get rid of DeFran.
Mhm.
Oh, true.
Yeah,
Fair
Bob,
enough.
Bob managed to wait this out long enough to where I threw him my Enlar trade as soon as DeFran quit. I had a trade for him, like, all right, Bob, give me what I want for Enlar, and Bob just managed to wait long enough for the entire thing to pass over.
Yep. Got to wait
Yeah.
past April Fool's Day because that's when all the trades were going to come in.
Because no one would
First-
take the announcement seriously if they dropped yesterday.
Personally, I think DeFran, the way I've been thinking about it is DeFran even said it himself, like, no, this is the good ending. Like, this is, he didn't flame out. He didn't tear down his whole career with it. We already were talking, I remember you guys talking about on Overwatch League Recap that he quit like halfway through the startup process for League, where he had a really bad day and said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I have to quit. Then he had to apologize to everybody and come back in. I think this is not the best ending. We were talking about this on Push the Point last night, that this is one of, like, if you play like an RPG, this is a analogy that Labasco used, that if you play an RPG, this is like the pretty good ending. This isn't the best ending where everything goes your way and you do all the correct things. This is the pretty good ending where, like, stuff goes well, but it's almost there. I mean,
for him though, he's gonna make a ton of money on streaming, and now he's gonna be getting a paycheck from Atlanta too, and it's good for the Overwatch game. It's not great for the league. The league is definitely a loser, but Overwatch is a game which streamers have been streaming less, especially with Apex Legends, as Ed mentioned earlier. If his main game is still Overwatch, that keeps Overwatch in that area of people that don't want to watch the Overwatch League. It keeps Overwatch relevant.
Now, all right, this I just don't know. But since he's like basically with Atlanta as one of their content creators, as one of their streamers, does he have to follow the same rules for streaming?
he said the Pepes are coming back.
No, but like I'm talking, is he allowed to stream during Overwatch?
He can stream during the league. Only signed players cannot stream during the league.
Okay, I didn't know because during Overwatch League, I'm not watching other streamers. So
yeah, just think about it. Even the casters and stuff are allowed to stream during the league. Jane's allowed to stream during the league.
Sideshow did all of his streaming during the league.
Sideshow. So yeah.
So looking back at how DeFran had performed in Fantasy Overwatch League, he put up some pretty good numbers. He averaged 21.89 points per 10 minutes. Throughout the stage, he went to 994.09 combined points, which was an average of 142.01 per game. He was 4th best in damage per 10 minutes, 7th best in eliminations per 10 minutes, really across the board, too. We did get the highlight moments from him as a player. And, we have to thank him for bringing Torbjorn back into Overwatch League at a serious level and not just kind of like as a meme. So that was definitely nice to see. But moving forward, it's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on for Atlanta, assuming like there is no meta shift. Like, does that just mean that they'll just be running Erster and Enlayer in regards to that Zarya Brigida role, or are they going to work Baby Bay into rotation on that front? Or if he's primarily being brought on to run hit scan or even projectile.
Yeah,
I
if
mean-
Goat stays, then Baby Bay's playing Zarya. He's played it before, and he's played it well. I mean, he was basically a Zarya one trick before. I mean, he was very similar to Sinatra before moving to DPS.
I mean, the way I've been thinking about it is, tell me if I'm wrong here. For you guys are more familiar with last night's leftovers than I am. There were at some point consistency issues with Enlaw, correct? As with his Widow play.
I mean, if you're going to talk about LNL, there's only one person to talk about it. And
He's
that is my boy, Sugar Free.
He's 14 and he's not playing anytime
He's
soon.
13, and a
Oh
week
my
ago he
gosh.
was 7.
There was a cat that just took a nosedive on Ramsey's tail.
Sage just
Literally
ran
from
out.
the top of the thing, just took a nosedive. Sorry,
Sage
Bob-
ran out.
Bob-
that totally threw me off.
But I think it's good to have
Ooh, a
Baby Bay in.
squirrel.
I also think the point that I've been hearing made is the reason you would pick Baby Bay, because we immediately were thinking, oh, well, maybe Davin finally gets picked up. Maybe Logix actually gets picked up. And there are a bunch of other European hit scan mains that would have been good pickups.
Mhm.
But at this point, you want somebody who you could play now, that you can throw in now. And we saw people that got signed at the beginning of stage 2 didn't play till midway through stage 3 last time. So
Yeah, I mean, like, you can comfortably play. Like, this week, if you're playing in a Raw league, End Layer is a safe start for 2 games. Because I don't think they're going to bring Baby Bay in and be like, okay, you're playing with the team this week. No, they're gonna play End Layer. The majority of the time, I think End Layer will be in there. I mean, he was even in there when sometimes when DeFran was on the team.
I think you see Baby Bay this week.
I think he pops in. Maybe I think they're going to split it this week. If anything, they haven't.
Yeah,
'Cause
I would agree with that.
They're playing Boston, London, and the Valiant, and we know for at least 2 of those games, you could pretty comfortably switch what your DPS are.
They have 3 games this week?
Well, they have 2.
Those are the next 3 games. Excuse me.
Okay.
Or 2? No, excuse me, my bad. The way the schedule's put out online is dumb. But they have Boston and London this week.
Is reading hard for you, Ramses? Left to right, top to bottom. Letters
No,
put together
legit.
words.
There's 3.
Words put together sentences.
There's 3 matches on here. Thank goodness our audio listeners didn't.
Why
get to see
is
dab.
Bob dabbing?
I've been doing it all. I've been doing it all night because I can now because I can move around with the standing desk. But we're off topic. Go.
Final
We're
note about
always off topic.
That's
Final
what we
note
should
about
have named
DeFran.
this. Off topic.
Off topic.
final note about DeFran. I would argue Atlanta now gets the best streamer partner lineup because they have the Fran and DeFran on the same lineup.
They could queue up together and it could just be the Franzes. They're here too.
The Frans.
Hump you
The
up.
Frans.
The Frans.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see whether or not they try to do any rebranding for that, Ed. But moving on, we also got some details for the Overwatch League All-Star game. So, why don't you tell everyone when that is going down, and, we'll go around and kind of share who we are thinking about voting for in regards to the people that have actually been performing in fantasy throughout this season so far.
Alrighty. So the All-Star game will actually kick off on May 15th. We don't know what the custom games will be, but I'm assuming it will be fairly similar to last year, which I have no problem with. The voting for the All-Stars ends on April 28th, so make sure you go out to the Overwatch League site and vote for your All-Stars, because right now, I know we're not doing actual All-Stars, but Arc and Pine should not be in the starting lineup.
No, they should not.
If you don't play at all, you should not be in the starting lineup for All-Stars.
Well, they're not eligible unless
Yes.
they meet certain requirements.
They did meet the certain requirements.
Yeah, we'll get into that, but there
Yes.
are a couple of pre.
The requirements are they had to play at least 10 matches
Mm-hmm.
this stage, or have to be on the All-Star team from last year,
Right.
which Arc and Pine both were. So yeah, go out there, vote for anyone besides those two. But we're gonna go over each one of us are fantasy all-stars. So who are your fantasy all-stars? We're each going to be picking 2 support, 2 damage, 2 tanks from each division. So yes, so I'll talk for a while. I'll talk for a while while Bob and Ramses. All right.
So how we'll do this is we'll have 2 of us do the Atlantic, and then the other 2 can do the Pacific.
All right.
Sounds good.
I'll start off with the Atlantic. For support, I went Boombox and Jonak.
Okay.
Honestly, the Atlantic division kind of sucks. Like, from a fantasy perspective, they kind of suck. Like, you have the Justice, Paris, Spitfire, fantasy-wise, were not that good. You have the Mayhem. You have the Houston Outlaws. Okay, half the teams are crap. Boston Uprising, who had Angod, who was good. Then you have Atlanta Reign, who put up good numbers, but not like actual numbers, not good fantasy numbers. And then you had, New York Excelsior and the Fusion. So this was actually a lot
and the
harder.
Defiant, and the Toronto Defiant as well.
Oh, I thought I said Defiant. Never mind. I'll include Defiant. They put up phenomenal fantasy numbers. Their team just sucks. And yes, they're not that good. They're overrated.
Really?
They are overrated.
Really think
It's
that?
hard to be
Okay.
overrated when nobody rates you in the first place, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know how to feel about the Toronto Defiant. I said that last night on Out Recap, but like
I don't consider
you
them a
can't
top 10
argue
team.
with you can't argue with what they've done to
Ooh,
start
Ed,
the season.
Ed, I don't know about that.
I don't consider them a top 10 team. I just don't. And they kind of proved it to us in the playoffs.
I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah,
Toronto,
so did the Philadelphia Fusion, who is a really good team.
when they want to be
That's
in
true.
the playoffs.
So Ed, let me get this straight. You would take the Boston Uprising over the Toronto Defiant.
I think that's a coin flip.
You would take the Dallas Fuel over the Toronto Defiant.
Yes.
You would take the LA.
I would
LA,
take
I
that.
understand. You would. I don't know. I don't believe. Ed.
Yeah. I just don't have faith in that team as a whole. But all right, on to the All-Stars. Supports. Boombox Jonak. I think that was an easy call for the Atlantic Division. I mean, those are 2 of the top probably 4 or 5 flex support players in the game. DPS. I mean, at this point, it has to go to Zarya players and only Zarya players because there are no DPS players. So I went with Nene from New York Excelsior, and then I did go with Envy from Toronto Defiance.
Watch me whiff, watch me nay.
Oh, poor boy.
And then for Tank, the Tank fantasy-wise from the Atlantic Division was brutal because none of the tanks truly did all that great. Well, none of the tanks really in all of Overwatch did that great fantasy-wise. So I went with Note, and I'm calling Note as an all-star for the Atlantic because he played for the Boston Uprising, not who he plays for currently. And Daco from the Atlanta Reign. We're probably, from a fantasy perspective, I'm not saying skill.
Oh, I'm even saying from a fantasy perspective, I own Daco and I was never impressed.
You may not have been impressed because you're not seeing flashy numbers, but you have to understand most tanks did not put up flashy numbers. He actually put up some of the best fantasy numbers for a flex tank in the league, stage 1.
I'm checking on that right now. I'm not sure I believe that.
Yeah, if you look at the points per game as tanks, he was actually number 3. So High Noon GG points per game, or points per map, he was the 3rd highest, behind Space and Note. Like, that's how crappy tanks were fantasy-wise, because we're not including Zaryas as the tanks. We're including divas who basically are doing a lot of poke damage and have to get kills with their bombs. And then honestly, probably the all-stars of the tanks are maybe like aggressive Rhine players like Fusions,
Bumper.
Bumper, am I drawing a blank? Fissure, like those kind of tanks. So
Fissure was not good.
he wasn't good, but like those kind of like aggressive Reinhardt tanks put up some decent fantasy numbers from time to time. So that is who I'm going with. Totem, do you want to do the Atlantic?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go ahead and share mine for the Atlantic. So I went a little bit differently out, except for supports. Supports was pretty much, well, you have Jonak and Boombox, and there really wasn't anyone else in consideration outside of AimGod. But I feel like performance-wise, Boombox just had a lot more consistency. But, AimGod did put up some pretty spectacular numbers as well, so you can definitely give him an honorable mention. For DPS, I went a different direction than you. I picked Ivy from the Toronto Defiant, as well as EQO from the Philadelphia Fusion. And, I feel like with this, by the time we get to the All-Star game, I don't expect EQO to be stuck in brick jail. So I felt like he'd bring a lot of flexibility to this team in particular. And then for the tank line, I went with Envy and Meko from Toronto Defiant and the NYXL, respectively.
That's who I was thinking for that division. Just Envy seemed like he put at least good numbers every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I wrote down Envy instead of Ivy. So I meant to say Ivy, not Envy. I was trying to find deep tank players, and Envy was on the brain. I'm still not putting Envy as my tank player, but I meant Ivy for DPS.
So we went with the 3-letter DPS line.
Correct.
Perfect. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the Pacific Division then.
Alrighty, so my Pacific lineup for DPS, I have Jinmu and Sinatra. For my tank line, I see your face, Ed. I see it. For my tank line, I have Void from the LA Gladiators and RCK. See, again, Ed's just giving me all these things. Look at this. Look at this. This is my favorite. And then for supports, I had Violet and Izayaki.
Yeah, but RCK's in the Atlantic Division.
Not yet. Not right now. He's not.
Not according to the
stage
votes.
one.
Okay. Well, I'll figure that out. So that's what that was for. I understand now. My other 5 picks aside.
We're getting 5 extra picks out of 6?
No, I'm just saying that the 5 besides.
So I do quickly want to point out how much Ramses valued misusage of Transcendence with his Izayaki pick.
Doesn't matter. Izayaki put up fat points every
Yeah, he
did.
did put up fat points in fantasy.
I would have went a different direction because there is another very consistent performer from the LA Gladiators.
Oh, for sure. I figured he would also get covered. So no, Izayaki is pretty much single-handedly carrying the league that we're all in for the Overwatch League Network host. Izayaki is him and AimGod are pretty much single-handedly carrying me to most of my wins at this point. So I wanted to show my gratitude. And Void has been a pretty decent fill-in, especially with Bishu being gone. So I've been happy with Void's performance. That's why I put him in. And then checking with the rest of my lineup, Sinatra's just been a beast this whole time. And Jinmu really came in at the end and put up some really good points at the end just to tie up the rest of the stage.
Ed's still trying to wrap his head around this. So
you're making my brain hurt here, Ramses. You're making my brain hurt. All right, first off, no, actually, I want to hear what Bob has to say. I want to hear Bob's Pacific Division people first. Do you have them?
Yep.
All right, well, I want to hear them first before I tear into Ramses.
Dude, I am shooting from the hip, but if we're going to go, so let's go DPS first. I'm going to go with the Jinmu for sure, just because he was the only DPS in stage 1 of the Overwatch League. Boo. And then I'll go with It's kind of a tie between Sinatra and Decay. I think Decay has a lot more promise than Sinatra does. Like, I'm still not sold on Sinatra, but it's kind of a tie between those. Support. From a fantasy perspective, I'm definitely going with Izzyaki from the Los Angeles Valiant, and I'm going with Unco from the Dallas Fuel. For tanks, definitely going with Bumper. Like the guy that can miss a charge into the other team 180 and shatter 4 and win the team fight because of it. Yeah, definitely go with Bumper. And then for the other tank, that was tough. Like RCK, definitely for the Dallas Fuel because of just being able to swap to Sombra. And I mean, it's kind of a tie. No, it's RCK from the Dallas Fuel.
See, he's in the Atlantic Division, though.
I know, but like you guys corrected me and said this was past tense.
He's still that was the Atlantic Division. Dallas is in the Atlantic Division.
They're in the Pacific.
I'm
Dallas
wrong
is in
about
the
everything.
Dallas is
I'm
the
wrong about
MVPs.
everything. I will say, so the person that we forgot that we didn't talk about for Pacific Division would be Michelle for tanks. I think Michelle, again, because he was playing Sombra most of the time, he still takes up a tank slot, and that's what's important. I would put in Michelle as my substitute. Nope, still wrong. Yeah, I put in Michelle as my
Okay, all right.
take the mic away from me, jeez.
Yeah, all right. Totem, you'll probably back me up on this.
Oh, are you thinking that we're going to be more sensible in this discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. For support, I don't disagree with Izzyaki and Violet. You forgot about Shax. He's quite good. All right, Shaz. Sorry, Shaz. He's quite good. I don't know if you know this. Yes, he's quite good, but you can't go wrong with Violet or Izzyaki. No problem with that. DPS. Yeah, one of you got it half right with Sinatra.
Mm-hmm.
Seum and Sue.
That's another option.
That's
not who I picked, though.
I know, but like he is another one that is. We're going strictly fantasy wise from stage 1. He was above.
Are you go with Seum and Sue
and Sinatra?
Yeah, but I mean, Jinmu is just the fact correct answer. He was the only DPS.
But did he put up the best fantasy numbers for a DPS player?
He put up some pretty good ones.
But like I'm saying, he only came on as an actual DPS player fantasy wise the last 2 weeks. And then tanks. I liked Bumper. I also like Janu and Space. Both Space was the number 1 tank in form of points per map, eliminations, and he was top 3 in damage, I believe, for tanks.
And it's because their team just happened to go to 5 maps.
I mean, but that same can be said for Izzyaki. Like, he made it because they went to 5 maps. It's just, fantasy-wise, Space was probably the best tank, numbers-wise, for all of Stage 1. Like, put out the most numbers.
Right.
But that would be in mind. Who did you have as your other DPS total?
Haxel.
The fantasy, Brig players are not in the fantasy discussion.
Oh, well, they are, especially when they flex to other things. He was putting up some 189 point weeks. How can you say that Brig players can't be in the discussion? Please.
Is it just because Zachary was not in the discussion?
You just made the point. If they're flexing on to something else, like Brig, but
he did have weeks with 189 for Brig.
You will have to show me that. I do not believe.
We'll go ahead and
you tweet that to me tomorrow.
Fine, I'll look into it, Bob. But still, he played Genji as well, not just Brig. Unlike all the other Brigs that were stuck in jail.
And that was a good point, but Brig on her own does not make fantasy points.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump into stage number 2. So we got a lot of changes, and I know we are running long already, but Ramses, we got a new patch, got a ton of balance changes, a new hero, new maps, some of which are returning from stage number 1. So I need to do a quick overview of what exactly is happening in stage 2.
All right, so a couple changes for stage 2. Number 1, the entire current live patch for Overwatch Online is what is going to currently be played for stage 2. And I know last year there was a big complaint for everybody that, patches were behind, that the live game wasn't like Overwatch League. It's super frustrating. La-di-da-di-da. Right now, it's synced up. So the current live character changes are all active in Overwatch League for stage 2, which includes Baptiste is now playable. Also, it's played on the live server. Baptiste is now playable, and we have not a complete change, because I know a couple of maps are returning from stage 1, but we're having a new map pool switched out. And also that means Paris, everybody's new favorite map, will be part of the Assault lineup. We were also talking about this last night, that they're changing the way the map order is now structured.
Mm-hmm.
That instead of Control, Hybrid, Assault, Escort, we're switching to the two middle ones are flipped. So now it's going to be Control, Assault, Hybrid, Escort. With the theory being that a lot of Assault maps go to draws, and they don't want the game to be halfway decided between... They don't want the game to be decided in the middle of round 3 just because Assault went a certain way. Do you think that's going to have any actual effect on fantasy points?
Yeah, Totem made a good point about this on The Last Heroes Never Die.
Totem's trying to think, what point did I make on Heroes Never Die?
There's so many podcasts.
This is something that, when Bob was calling me out on social media, I was like, I can't remember what I did 2 shows ago, let alone, a month ago. So, I honestly don't remember.
And then just to mention, the returning maps from stage 1 would be Busan, mm-hmm. Kings Row, Temple of Anubis, and Rialto.
Right. Yeah, so, just kind of taking a look at it, we got the new map in Paris, we got Baptiste entering the fold, and this is a patch that brought a lot of balance updates. So that included the cooldown reductions to Doomfist, Anna's Nano Boost heal was nerfed, Junkrat got some love with impact damage increase with this frag launcher, Orisa moves faster when she fires, and the list goes on, and maybe for... trying to do hunters, probably the biggest thing to note is that Wrecking Ball can actually use his adaptive shield when he is in ball mode. So a lot of interesting things that could definitely shake up the meta. It's just a matter of, whether or not teams are going to be experimenting with the new hero, kind of like what Dallas did in Stage 4 with Brigitte, or if people are going to stick to what they've actually been practicing, which for the most part still seems to be quite a bit of 3-3.
The ball mode thing is actually pretty interesting, because I hadn't played a lot of Hammond when stage 1 started. And I remember me and Mel sitting there watching, week 1 and 2. And I'm like, why do they never use their shield? Mm-hmm. Like, they're right there. And I just didn't know that you had to come out of ball mode to actually use the shield. So I was like, so many people could have survived. I don't understand why they're not doing that. So, I think this is a huge buff for Hammond.
One thing I would say is Jane actually just came out with a video today kind of talking, because he put on like the Elo Hell or like some of his tournaments lately, and it's the only like organized tournament that has been out there using this patch. And they did see a lot of Baptiste play. And Baptiste was replacing the Diva.
Interesting.
And he shows clips of it. And it's very weird for me to like comprehend it, but like it was just one of those, I'm like, all right, this works, I guess. So definitely go check that out. Now, if OGE is on Hammond, does that technically mean that Dallas Fuel has blue balls?
By definition, yes.
Well, actually, no. It would have to be Dallas versus Boston. To pluralize it, they'd have blue balls.
Well, it really depends on who's home and away in these situations, because in some cases they're going to be white, and in other cases they'd be blue.
Yeah,
I don't think you could just have like the blue accent that actually counts towards that. But that's just,
because then you only have half blue balls,
mm-hmm.
And I mean that's just a problem in all itself. I've been waiting like 2 weeks to come out with that one, and I just saw my opportunity. And Bob's not even here to appreciate
he missed it. I mean, he might have his headphones on, so he probably heard it, but he's not here to actually comment on it.
But I was laughing.
You were laughing. Bob approves of the blue balls. You heard it here first.
The other thing to mention. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, it's fine.
The other thing to mention would be that I think we'll still get a healthy amount of 3-3, but a lot of it's going to be, for my money, it's going to be more Winston 3-3.
Mm-hmm.
Now that Winston's damage is now more uniform across everything. So you only have the 20% damage reduction against armor. And then now also that knockback is a little bit more standardized.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to make it a lot easier and more predictable to play Winston. So Winston players should put up more fantasy numbers than they did in the last stage.
Yeah, it's definitely good news if you're Philadelphia.
Since I've heard that, but Winston is real squishy with all these DPS buffs.
Yep.
I mean, if they're playing it, they're going to have to be like really passive. So
you're seeing a lot of Ana lately.
Mm-hmm.
If you're watching like the Twitch streams and some of the pro players right now, even if you look at the top, top 500, most of the people at the top are like Ana players. So you're going to see a lot of nanoed Winstons going in there and then just pumping out fantasy numbers. Really, when I see a nanoed Winston, I'm not thinking, hey, they're going to do good. I'm like, hey, that's some fantasy points right there. So hopefully we see some more, the rise of the non-Zen Zarya domination.
Right.
Real quick, do we think the Zen changes are going to have a decent fantasy impact at all?
I don't think so. I mean, especially if you consider that Diva's been a 1 being substituted to Run Baptiste. To me, that tells me that we're still going to be seeing a lot of Zen with that flex support.
The sound of silence.
Well, I'm thinking more because now his actual projectiles he throws do 48 damage instead of 46, but Orb of Discord's effectiveness is reduced by 5%.
Yeah, it seems like that's going to just balance out over time, though.
It's going to balance out over time for the specific Zenyatta player, but it's going to hurt the overall team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they were aiming for. It hurt the overall team because the Discord orb affects everyone. Whereas the buff to his actual orb, you couldn't even possibly go out on a limb and say you might see better fantasy numbers from Zenyatta if they're in the meta because they're pumping out more individual damage and less overall team damage. So,
yeah, it keeps stars like Jonak relevant with their individual plays, but they're really just trying to kill goats. And come on, Blizzard, give us 2/2/2 roll queue, and it's done. And then you can balance everything accordingly. Let's just do it.
And then we can go back to dive.
Do it.
Let's do it.
But
do
Bob, I want to run Slambulance.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
I was going to see how long you guys were going to let that play out.
Do
but moving on,
so I'm not sure what's going on here, but I think I'm not hearing Totem. Like Totem's screen is black on my screen here, and I see
just reload. Just hit the reload.
Because mine's working fine. But anyways, let's go ahead and move on to a lot of the movement that we got to see today Because if you've been on social media today, you've probably seen a slew of changes coming out from a lot of different teams out there. Let me just quickly pull Bob back in.
Crap! I thought we were gonna get rid of him.
No, I'm not.
We start
I'm not
trashing
getting
the
rid
Dallas
of
Fuel.
Bob. So
Be like, quick, while he's gone, talk about the Fuel, so he can't.
I was so confused. Like I was like,
Mhm.
why is there so much silence going on right now? And it's because I couldn't hear Totem.
Gotcha. Well, anyways, Bob, we're talking about all the movement that we saw today, and there was a lot of movement. So I'm just going to quickly go over everything that happened today or in the recent weeks based on team, and then we'll kind of circle back and give some of our thoughts on some of the changes that we did see. So first up, let's talk about the Washington Justice, who had dropped one of their coaches in Abbassil. They also had signed Arc not that long ago from the New York Excelsior. You have the LA Valiant, who had dropped one of their coaches. And, there's always a question mark about, well, is this going to mean the return of Custa to the starting roster? That remains to be seen. We had a trade between the Boston Uprising and the Dallas Fuel. So Boston Uprising traded Note for RCK. And Boston also signed a new flex support in Persia, who had played for Talon Esports in Contenders Pacific not that long ago. With Atlanta, as we mentioned earlier, you had the Frand retiring, as well as the addition of Baby Bay. Toronto dropped one of their strategy coaches, Don. Paris Eternal dropped their head coach, Damon. And that's basically everything that happened today in a span of like 12 hours. So there's a lot to kind of take in here. And it really makes you think, well, is it time to reevaluate some of these teams going into stage 2 from a fantasy perspective? So obviously with Arc, when he was on NYXL, he wasn't seeing a lot of play. Animo's basically the one taking up the very majority of the playtime there. So he seems to be like just going to be starting right away. So he's going to see his stock increase for Washington Justice. But who knows what's going on with the LA Valiants with their coaching changes, whether that means Cussa is going to be brought back in or if they're to keep experimenting with Kuki on that Lucia role when he was just kind of mid-low, table in regards to fantasy performances. But taking a look at everything, which particular move do you guys think has the biggest impact on these teams?
Yeah, I think Boston got a steal. Like, I do not understand the trade of RCK for a Diva bot. I just don't. And I'm really, as a Dallas Fuel fan, kind of pissed about it, to be honest. I mean, like, having a Diva that can flex to Sombra is huge. Why did you give that up?
If goats are still a thing. Like,
If,
and that's it.
Yeah. But like, I would like to know, we see the player movement, but we don't get to hear about any of the money that was involved. Right. I want to know if Boston chucked up some money, because then I could feel better about it. You know what I mean? I
guarantee you Boston didn't, because that is not anything close to the Boston MO. Mm-hmm. Boston is all about getting players young. Nobody knows about having them perform, selling them off to other teams. Like, that has been their MO. I don't
get it.
Yeah, like, that's been their MO since day one. I mean, now they only have, Kelix is the only original, and him and AimGod are the only two left from season 1 on that team. It's just, like, I think everyone kind of agrees that Note is the better pure diva player of the two, but RCK offers more flexibility. And like you said this pre-show, Bob, if Dallas believes that GOAT is not a thing, and thus GOAT with Sombra is not really a thing, and they're just going to be running Diva, then it was a good move for them. If they don't plan on running a Sombra or, GOATs with Sombra and RCK switching over, like that kind of situation, then it was probably a good move for them. So it's all about the philosophy. We just don't know what actually is going to get played until Thursday. We could have a 4 DPS meta. Who knows? It's just weird to think of it from a Boston perspective that you traded Note for RCK to get your 3rd DPS. Like that's essentially kind of how I'm seeing it. Like RCK is your off tank, but really he's probably your third DPS because they have no one else on that team.
I'm pretty sure we're going to hear more announcements, if not during this recording or tomorrow.
Yeah, there's going to be more.
I don't think Boston is done making the moves. They're going to sign a DPS player, and RCK is just going to take over as their off tank.
I know the rumors have been that Crystal from the Spark was a possible pickup.
Yep, which would be a great pickup for them. But it's just we never know. With Boston is the most unpredictable team. Period. Like we don't know what the hell is going through their minds.
Yeah, when I saw this trade happen, I'd immediately tweeted, and I was like, "Well, if you can't beat Sombra Goats, just go out and trade for someone that's better at Sombra than D.Va Forehead." Because that's really how I feel. Like I understand that Boston struggled against Sombra, so the mindset is, well, let's just get a Sombra so we could try to counteract when other teams are running the Sombra. But stock value wise, I feel like Note still to this day is criminally underrated as a D.Va player. He is one of the best divas in the West. But to Bob's point, we never hear the money movement, but I wonder, looking at the contracts, if like maybe say Note is only on a contract this year and then it's up, as opposed to what they signed RCK to. Maybe RCK has a lengthier contract.
That's a great point.
So that's something that we might also need to consider.
Well, they were 1 year. There were 1 year's deals with an option for another 1 year extension, correct?
I believe so.
Ed, you're quiet.
I'm going to be honest. I've talked about this for so long today that I'm at this point kind of tilted. And so I'm just going to let Ed talk.
Oh, no, I was going to say, we just don't know about the contracts, and we never will. Like, it could be a 1 year with a 1 year option. It could be certain players got 2 years. Like, how people could be on stage-to-stage contracts, and we just don't know. It's just the nature of the business. We're not going to know what the contracts are like.
Players union.
But even a players union,
they will demand that to be... Like, that's why the NFL puts it out. That's why you get to know every contract signing, you get to know everything because the players want to know that. And they pushed for that. They want to know that so they can know what to ask for. And that's what we need. We need more transparency in the Overwatch League.
Yeah, that's opening up a whole different can of worms when we start talking about that. Because then you start getting OWL salary caps, and who knows what happens at that point. But
which you probably should have in a league that does profit sharing. You should definitely have caps.
Yep. But we just don't know what all was included in this. Like, could it be future considerations, or could Note have told them that he wants a trade, or RCK says he wants a trade? Like, it could be on the players too. Like, we don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, if I was Note, I'd probably demand a trade. I'm on Boston. That's like, Boston is not a good organization because you have no job security when you play for Boston Uprising.
Yeah, and the thing too that I want to note, I did not even mean to go
that
way.
Sick pun.
God damn it! But when I saw these movements happening out of Boston today, I was just taken back. I was like, wait, so okay, they signed a new flex support. Okay, that's really not an issue on this team. All right, they traded away their D.Va. Okay. I didn't see an issue in regards to Note's performance. So it just kind of left me in this state. I was like, what is actually happening here? Because they're not addressing the issues that the team is having right now. The problem that they have right now is that they do not have the depth at the DPS line because they just have Color Hex and Blase. And yes, Doomfist got buffed. That doesn't necessarily mean that, Blase is going to be silent on people on Doomfist in Stage 2. I would love to see it. Hope it happens. But it's just one of those things where the movement doesn't really make that much sense to me because they weren't problem areas for that team in particular.
No.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you, Totem.
I will say this from a fantasy perspective, I don't think it changes either one of their fantasy outlooks. I think they're both going to be the same as what they were fantasy-wise.
Yeah.
From a fantasy perspective, I mean, the biggest change I would personally say is Arc.
Mm-hmm.
No, from a fantasy perspective, the biggest change is Baby Bay is back, and he is available in every league that you're in right now if you're fast.
Can you 100% guarantee that Baby Bay will be starting every map?
I can't 100% guarantee it,
but I can 100% guarantee.
Will tell
Arc
you.
will.
I will tell. Yeah, but Arc, Mercy, please play Mercy for me.
We don't know with this upcoming meta. Maybe he plays Anna.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm pretty sure Baby Bay is slotting right. If Goat stays, Baby Bay is slotting right into that Zarya role. And if we're going to DPS, Baby Bay is going to be even better.
All right. Well, Atlanta does play 2 games, so let's just guess how many maps Baby Bay is going to play this week, and we'll revisit that on the next episode.
I think safe bet across 2 games. I would think
not 3.
4 maps.
4. Okay.
4. Half the maps.
I'm gonna go with the same as Ramses. Baby Bay plays at least half, if not more.
Okay, Ed.
2.
I'm gonna side with Ed on this. I feel like he's gonna be put in the filler map for map 4 in each series.
Yeah, by saying 4 maps, you're assuming that, well, for starters, that they're playing 8 total maps. That it's going to go to game 4 every single time.
They have to play game 4.
Well, they have to play game 4.
Sorry, let me finish. Let me finish.
I think what you meant to say was map 5.
No, I'm saying is with what Totem said is the filler map. If they go to map 4 in each one, that is when Baby Bay will get it. Ask me this after week 1.
Okay, hold on. So what you're saying is if he's
going to get garbage time.
3 maps.
He's going to get garbage time.
And they go to map 4, Baby Bay plays. That's what you're saying. Because they're always going to go to map 4.
Yeah. That is what I'm saying. He's going to be the garbage time DPS. After week 1, I think he's in there a lot more. He's probably in there 60, 70% of the time. I think week 1 of getting a brand new DPS that you're not scrimming with, I think it's safe for week 1, especially since I don't believe they have too crazy of a schedule.
It's London. It's Boston and then London is when I checked it.
All right, so about their equals. I mean, a little less than that, but actually probably their equals now without the Fran. You go with the safe bet, the one the team knows how to play with, the one who knows the calls, knows the strats, stuff like that. It's why we didn't see Gamsu for the Shanghai Dragons really at all at first with them. It's that same thing. Not week 1. He didn't play. They only went with 1 tank week 1.
That's right.
Yeah, they're running a triple DPS.
Yeah. So I don't think he plays much week 1, but week 2 he steps it up and is very much startable.
All right. Well, with that being said, obviously we got a ton to think about and weigh in on going into stage number 2. A lot to think about. So this week's definitely going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of figure out who we're actually starting, if we see any sort of meta shifts, and what players might resurface all of a sudden and get some play time. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. But just as a reminder, Overwatch League is back this Thursday for stage number 2. But with that being said, guys, I know we are running a little long, so we're going to go ahead and close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, one of the best ways to do that is to go leave us a review over on iTunes or your podcast in the app of choice. We're always looking for ways to improve the show, so any help with that is greatly appreciated. And if you're looking for additional Overwatch content, we have a great content hub in Overwatch Recall. So Bob, why don't you tell everyone about that?
So OW Recall is really cool. Like, okay, so I'm not trying to pimp this to you. I am actually a fan, and I found a new podcast that I really like in Casual Casual Owl, I think it's called. I found it during you'll have to check out OW Recall to actually get the name of it, but Casual Owl is really good, and I really enjoyed that last episode. So if you want to just get a listing of every podcast that covers anything Overwatch, you should check out OW Recall on Twitter. That's at OW Recall. That will get you everything you need to know. Their episodic listings, I believe, posted every Sunday. Is that right?
Yeah, it's every Sunday for sure.
Yeah. And it's also a podcast that does interviews. That's where I found that. Like, definitely check it out, guys. It is a really good time. It's very similar to Realm Maintenance, if anybody knows Row, but it just focuses on Overwatch rather than all of Blizzard. So if you're a huge fan of Overwatch, this is the podcast and the feed to follow. And you can find the episodic listings at owlnshow.com/OW Recall.
Absolutely. And our interview will return on the next episode. And we'll have more details on that here in the coming days ahead. And of course, if you're always looking for new podcasts, constantly check that podcast directory where you can find, a certain Push the Point podcast, which recently just started with our very own Julian Goulian, aka Ramses.
Ramses!
Which I found hilarious initially. I was like, oh, so Julian just gonna go out and trade one Chicagoan for another, and on top of that, now he has a podcast with not one but two Dallas Fuel fans. So I thought that was an interesting take as well.
I don't know.
Props to you, Ramses. Labasco is a talent. Like, if I had a spot on Al Recap, I would have already picked him up before you.
Legit, I was just like, well, in an ideal world, who would I get? And I was like, oh, I want Labasco. And then I was like, well, I know the guy. Why not just ask and see how it goes? Also, Totem, I think he's of a similar stance that you are for your potential third team, in that, because I know you're a diehard Runaway fan and then also being a diehard Lunatic High fan.
Mm-hmm.
But Labasco puts forward the stance that he's a Dallas Fuel fan until 2 years from now, they hopefully announce a Chicago team, in which case there's going to be the mass bailout of everybody supporting the Chicago team.
Chicago baits.
Mass exodus.
Yep. When Heroes Never Die becomes an official Chicago Overwatch League podcast.
10 years into the Overwatch League, we finally get a Chicago team.
A 5-hour show.
But Push the Point is a new Overwatch League podcast that myself and my buddy Labasco, Bob's buddy Labasco, your new buddy Labasco, have started. We're currently we put up a nice backlog of episodes to try and get you guys caught up for stage 2 in case you aren't already. That are typically it's going to release on Tuesdays, but we had episode 0 come out today, episode 1 will come out tomorrow, and then I think episode 2 will come out the day after that. So lots of stuff going on. And if you're at all interested in joining this podcast, another podcasting journey with us, you can find us on Twitter at PushPointPod, and we'll be releasing it every Tuesday.
Absolutely. And with that being said, we have a number of different ways how you can get a hold of our podcast and our network. So Ed, why don't you take that one over?
I like how I'm reading it this week because Ramses
Run the gauntlet, Ed. Run the gauntlet.
has not been.
Run the gauntlet.
So you can reach us on email at contact@owlnshow.com. We are on Twitter. You can reach us there at OWL by the numbers. We do have a website where we post everything, and that is www.owlnshow.com. We are on YouTube where we post some of our videos and power rankings, and that is youtube.com/c/Overwatch League Network. So come over there. We are on Discord, so come join us and talk to us over there at discord.me/OWLNshow. We are streaming presently live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLNshow. We are a Twitch affiliate, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network does stream pretty regularly, so Mondays we have the Overwatch League Network airing at 7 p.m. Pacific. On Tuesdays, we have this show, OWL by the Numbers, at 6 p.m. Pacific. And then on Wednesdays, we have Heroes Never Die, the show me and Totem do, and that airs at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams are scattered throughout. Usually it's Thursdays, Fridays, but let's just go whenever they feel like it.
Like Monday, I did an impromptu stream before OWLN.
Yep. So just keep an eye out for all that. And then we do have a Patreon. So that is www.patreon.com/OWL network. We recently launched our network Patreon page for those who want to support our Overwatch network even further. Tiers starting at just $1 a month. You too can join the likes of Brendan, Gabby, and Blazing Bob. And helping our network grow. So thanks again for all your support. So we appreciate any help you guys have over there. Totem, I'm going to let you go over how to contact the hosts.
Well, before I do that, just as a reminder, we did have an Overwatch League Podcasters Roundtable this past weekend, which you can find in a number of places, whether it is on the Overwatch League Network feed, the Heroes Never Die feed. You can find it on Owl Recaps YouTube, as well as Overtakes, a YouTube channel. So definitely go check that out, because that was a really good time. We ran for it was 2 hours, I want to say. It was a really good time.
It was 2 hours on the dot. It was a blast. And any content creator, reach out to us, because we want to do more of these, and we want to keep it to where we can have cams, but we want to have 8 per, and we want to involve as many shows as possible, because it was honestly the highlight of my weekend without any Overwatch League. It was just a blast.
Yeah, and there is a good chance that with enough interest, we could have multiple roundtables as well, just because there are a ton of great content creators out there. So please get in touch if you want to be involved with our next one, which will happen in the week between stage 2 and stage number 3.
4 weeks, 3 weeks between stage 2 and stage 3.
Oh, that's right, because we have the break there. For the
so we can do so many round tables. Let's do it. Content creators, reach out.
all 82 of us, absolutely. But you can also find all of the hosts on social media. So you can find myself, Totally Drunk, on Twitter at Totally Drunk CTR. Blaze and Bob, where can they get a hold of you?
You can find me usually less tilted than I am tonight, but Dallas has thrown me through a loop today, and so I'm a little tilted. RCK was one of my favorite rookies to come into the league, and so been a little tilted all night on every podcast I've been on tonight, but you can find me on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB.
Well, they may not have won the trade in your eyes, Bob, but you did win ATP. Congrats again.
Yeah, thank you.
But next up, Ramses, where can our listeners find you on the social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Ramses_OW, where you can find my Overwatch musings and my overreactions and celebrations of the fact that the King, Baby Bay, is going to start one more time. I'm calling it.
All right, hold on. I'm stepping in and I'm placing a bet with Ramses.
Which, side note, Ed already checked our Raucous bet that we made at the beginning of the season.
Yes, and Raucous is not even in the top 20 flex support.
There's plenty of Overwatch left. There's plenty of
There's
Overwatch left.
20 teams, and he's not even in the top 20. Okay, let's just throw that out there. But Ramses, right now, skin for skin, we'll have to figure out who's going to get what skin. Baby Bay, week 1. 4 matches, under 4 matches, me. Over 4 matches, you. 4 is a tie.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right.
I'm good with that.
All right. That's an easy one. 4 is a tie, so anything under 4, I win. Anything over 4, you win.
It's nice and clean and even. I like
There you
it.
go.
So,
All right.
so when you come to me and be like, "Excuse me, where's my skin?" I can't be like, "Well, the tie." Whatever. Or when you pull out your whatever, like, "Oh, technically, map 5s don't count because they don't always have access to a map 5. So therefore, I don't think they should count in this wager."
Oh yeah, no. I would totally try and weasel out of a bet with you if I could. I'm not even going to doubt that.
You went way too deep on that voice for Ed. It's more like,
Yeah.
no, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
This is how we do it.
Yeah, come on, Ramses.
You were
I don't
trying
know,
to
Bob. I'm
imitate
pretty sure
me.
that's what this is like.
Hashtag assholes never die.
All right. Well, Ed, where can our listeners get hold of you over on Twitter?
You can reach me on Twitter at Edanar Overwatch. That's EDANAR Overwatch. I tweet about random things.
Mhm.
I got drunk and started live tweeting Guardians of the Galaxy 2 this weekend.
That was
Right.
fun to look at.
Like I have some more musings. Okay, so if Thanos did the snap, did he have a
All right.
50-50 shot of getting rid of himself?
All right, listeners, if you want to write in, I petition that we change this podcast name to OWL Off Topic.
But it's an honest question. Like, if he did the snap, didn't he have a 50-50 shot of snapping himself?
I mean, you would think so. And if that was the case, like,
And
how much of a dilemma would have that been for them to be like, well, in order to bring everyone back, that would also have to mean we bring Thanos back.
Exactly.
well, and I think the way Thanos, I mean, I just watched that movie Friday night, so I think Thanos actually was okay with that. Actually, he probably would have welcomed that.
Mhm. Now, the other one I thought of while I was drunkenly watching this is, so you know how Thor's new weapon, the arm of it is Groot's arm? But Groot got snapped. So shouldn't, in theory, the weapon not have a handle? Because if Groot got snapped, Groot's arm got snapped.
Well, it's
Yeah,
now
that's
a
a good
piece
point.
of wood. It's no longer a sentient being. It's a wooden
It's
object.
still part of
connected to it.
Groot. It's Groot.
Well, as much as I'd love to, debate whether or not that's actually the case, Ed, we're going to go ahead and close out the show for tonight. And you guys can argue about it post-show while I do other stuff. But guys, thank you so much again for hanging out with us tonight on Twitch for our live show. Again, you've been listening to OWL by the numbers, and more times than not, off topic. This has been episode number 10. I've been your host, Totally Drug, joined as per usual by my co-hosts, Blazing Bob, Ramses, and Edanar, and we hope to see you guys back next week. Have a good night.
Stay tuned for our new Marvel podcast.
Baby Bay 4+ maps.